my table tennis talk show. I am talking today about the changes to Table Tennis England's policies on the tournaments. So one of the changes that they're going to bring in is that they're not going to have any coaching allowed at the U12s National Cup this season, and potentially moving that forward to following seasons. They might expand that out to the U15s National Cup and the U18s National Cup. So if you've joined me, feel free to put your comments in the chat box. Hi, Stuart. Feel free to give your opinions on the topic. So my opinion is that generally the rules should be the same for all events. I don't think it's a good idea to chop and change and have one rule for most events and another rule for one or two events. So, I mean, okay, you could say it's only one event, so it doesn't really matter. Which was my kind of initial view, and I don't personally go to that event, so it doesn't affect me at all. I don't have players that are going to it either. But yeah, I think there's got to be some form of consistency. So, I mean, they're talking about other countries and what happens at international events, people not having enough not only coaches at international events, but I don't necessarily think that's a good reason not to do it. A lot of the coaches were making comments on other groups that they've put their time and energy and effort into coaching these players, and then they can't even coach them at one of the most important events in the calendar, which is a fair point. Whether I think coaching in general should be allowed at the corner in between games is another question. Now, Henry Arthur was saying that he doesn't think that it's a good idea, but he was agreeing that, being that it is allowed, that they should allow it at all events. So what do I think about coaching? I mean, in a way, it probably shouldn't be allowed, because the player should be able to work it out for themselves. And really, if a coach does influence the outcome of a match, the player hasn't really fully done it on their own. Okay, people have coaches off the table and they put effort in and they get help off the table. But when it comes to the match, maybe, I know we've always had coaching during matches or cornering, but maybe it's not that fair, because obviously some people are going to have coaches, some are not, some are going to have better coaches than others. Maybe the way forward would be to take coaching away from all events, but that's not what's up for discussion really at the moment. So there's 7 people on. Has anybody got any comments on that before I kind of move on to the next item? Which is, the next item was, which they've changed now. They put out a statement that qualification for the national cadet and junior events, I think it was, or it might have applied to the under 10s, 11s, 12s and 13s as well. They've removed it now, so I can't check. But they were saying the qualification for that was going to be based on results from 4 stars, except the top 10. I think that it was the top 10 in the ranking list were going to qualify automatically. And then there was going to be people who got to finals of 4 stars who were going to qualify based on their performance. And other people were going to qualify based on what rounds they got in the 4 stars. I guess the idea was to try and encourage people to go to 4 stars more, to encourage the best players to go to 4 stars. Got a comment from Stuart. are you talking about coaching being removed because of COVID or other reasons? No. So Table Tennis England is talking their idea for removing the coaching at the Under-12s National Cup is to promote independence and to take away reliance on the coach to kind of help the player. They want them to do it for themselves, which is a good point. My point was that they've got to be consistent across events. So I do agree that I was saying possibly the coaching shouldn't be allowed at all, because it's kind of unfair in a way. The player can win a match based on something a coach has told them, which isn't really the player doing it themselves. But no, we're not talking about COVID. This is just literally a new strategy. So back to what I was saying. There was an announcement that there was, and they're still discussing this, the second bit. It hasn't been decided. So apparently it was published on the website before it was kind of ratified or approved by everybody. So, but yeah, the current qualification situation for national championships is I think the top 30 qualify automatically by ranking, and there's 2 wildcards. Now, to me, I strongly disagree with wildcards. I mean, if you were 31 or 32 in the rankings and somebody else got picked ahead of you, you wouldn't be happy, would you? I mean, what's this wildcard thing about? I mean, that doesn't agree with me at all. I mean, that just seems to be very subjective. You know, if they're not in the rankings, they're not in the rankings. You know, I don't agree with this wildcard system. The ranking system is there for a reason. So they've people have accumulated the ranking points. They're trying to get into the nationals as one motivation for getting ranking points, and then they get to the top 32, and then no, they're not chosen because there's a couple of wildcards. I don't get the wildcard thing. If anybody else has got a view on wildcards or as to why they do wildcards, I guess there could be a situation where somebody's been injured or something for a long time. Wildcard are only useful if someone has been in. That's what I was just saying. Yeah, Danny Lawrence comment. Someone's been injured for a season, etc., and have dropped off the ranking. Yeah, okay, yeah. In that situation, I could understand it. If someone's clearly top 10 or whatever, and they've dropped off the ranking list because of injury or illness, yeah, in that case, I could understand it. But I take it that's not the only reason they've got wildcards. William Waltrip is saying, coaching during matches no longer allowed. Player not doing well in match turns to coach and mouths, "Coach, tell me what to do." That was racket sports before coaching was allowed in the match. Trying to figure out what he's trying to say, to be honest. Yeah, but if he was to do that, the coach wouldn't be allowed to reply. I mean, in tennis, the coaches aren't anywhere near the players because they're not allowed to give advice. So maybe they could be sitting away or the balcony or something, so they can see what's going on from a distance, but they're not in a position to give coaching advice if the rules were to be changed. You know, or at this National Under-12s Cup where they're not going to allow coaching. I'm not sure how they're going to stop coaching. People might develop their kind of sign language, or I don't know, some kind of a system. I don't know where they're going to allow the coaches to be. Are they going to be allowed to be in the venue, or they're going to be, as I said, removed on a balcony somewhere out of the way where they can see? I assume they're not going to tell the coaches they're not allowed in the venue whatsoever. That would be a bit extreme, I think. Coming from Danny Lawrence. What is the point in not having coaches at under 12 level, but if they get picked to go to, hold on, scroll down. If they get picked to go to a European champs and they will be against the coach as well, seems counterproductive. Yeah, Yeah, I agree. I think that there should be a consistency across the tournaments. If there's coaching in one tournament, it should be in all tournaments. Same with timeouts. There's no timeouts in the National Cadet League, National Junior League, or Vets Masters tournaments. And, you know, people get used to doing something a certain way. I think there's got to be consistency. William Waltrip saying, well, the effective coach tells a player what to do months and years before the match, and does best to build playing into one who makes a good choice, is adaptive and has tactical intelligence. These coaches' numbers seem to be shrinking. Yeah, so, I mean, preparing the player in advance, coaching them, giving them, I mean, that's obviously, that's part of the process. That's accepted. That's obviously, everybody would agree with that. But I can see an argument for people saying there shouldn't be any coaching allowed at the table at all, because it can disadvantage certain people if they haven't got a coach or whatever. But like I said, I think it's just one event where they're picking it out. As to whether under 12s in particular are ones which shouldn't be coached as compared to, say, under 18s, that's another question. I mean, under 12s might need it more in a way, but I suppose because they need it more, because they're not so experienced, maybe the coaching at the corner has more of an effect in terms of turning results around. If it's an 18-year-old or whatever, or an adult, maybe the coach at the corner, you know, isn't as necessary because they're able to work a lot out on their own. But then when it's not as necessary, the coach probably won't make as much of a difference. I mean, I'm not sure whether I'm right on that. This is just my kind of random thoughts that I'm thinking out loud. So if anybody's got any comments on whether they think coaching is more important or more effective at a younger age group than an older age group, just put that into the chat section. Going back to the qualification for the national championships, previously, a number of years ago, there was no qualification procedure at all. Anybody could enter. It was an open entry. And that seemed to work quite well. There were more entries. More people got a chance to play in the nationals. I think maybe the entries started to get a bit too much for them. I remember one year there were 3 people in each group, and only one went through to the main draw, which was then knockout. So you could get 2 games and go home. But a lot of people thought that's a long way to travel for 2 games, and one of them was probably a top seed, you know. So a lot of people didn't actually travel. They saw, oh, they've got number 1 seed and one other person who they can beat easily or something like that, and they weren't going to go through. So a lot of them didn't turn up at all. And then it was made even worse. So there was only groups of 2 or groups of 1 in some cases. And I think Table Tennis England then decided to limit numbers. And if I'm right, I think they had a qualification tournament where, you know, for each age group. So you went along and you had a tournament to see if you could qualify to play in the national championships. And that was arguably the best way of doing it, I think, because, you know, anybody outside the top 32 or whatever had an opportunity to prove themselves and make it into the nationals, so that, you know, to give them a chance of doing well. After that, they decided to limit it to 32 players. I think it's top 30 automatically on ranking, and then 2 wildcards. Now, that obviously excludes anybody beyond 30, 32, unless they're a wild card, which, you know, a lot of people probably wouldn't like. So personally, I don't. I think the open entry probably doesn't work because there's too many entries. The top 30 is fine, but it does have its limitations because certain people can enter. What they were proposing with the 4-star results contributing to whether you could play in the nationals, I'm not sure about. I don't think it's a good idea. Okay, it might encourage people to play more 4-stars, but I don't think. I mean, some people might not be able to make them because maybe they're too far to travel, too expensive, clashing with other things that maybe aren't to do with table tennis, or maybe are to do with table tennis. Or they're ill or injured or whatever, and they can't make those events. So I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to get more people to play in 4-stars, but I don't think necessarily it's the right way to do it. I think the qualification tournament, like they do for the senior nationals, might be the best way to go going forward. Danny Lawrence, anyone should be able to enter the national championships. Fact. It's also the best time for up-and-coming players to come and see the best players in the country. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. I would agree there with Danny. So, because when it's restricted to the top 32, anybody outside of that doesn't make it. So I think the qualification tournament on its own, the kind of standalone qualification tournament where the top, whatever, 12 or 16 players from that tournament join maybe the top, say if it was the top 16 from that qualification tournament, join with the top 16 in the rankings to give yourself 32, and then maybe have 8 groups of 4, and then 2 go through into the main draw and then knockout. Stuart's video feed has dropped out. Okay, Stuart. But yeah, that's my opinions. So, like I said, so with the coaching, I think it's okay in theory, but it shouldn't just be one event. Okay, they might say they're trialing it for one event, but the point is that the rule hasn't been brought in with ITTF to stop people from coaching, and I don't think it ever will be. So I don't agree with not having it. And the qualification procedure, I don't really like the 4-star being a qualification process for the nationals either. I would suggest having it as same as with the seniors, with a qualification tournament. Vidal Graham saying, why not have a coach? We're trying to teach players how to be a professional player, and all professionals have a coach. Yeah, so he's agreeing. I mean, yeah, the professionals have coaches. They have coaches at European tournaments, international tournaments, all the other tournaments in England. So why should the National Cup be any different? So yeah, I agree. Vidal, question: do you think it would be better to have no coaches in the corner in any table tennis event, including international events, at all, just to take it away completely, or just to leave it coaching in all events? We're just trying to see who is live. I'm not sure how to do that. Trying to see if I can see who is actually watching. Don't know if anybody can tell me how to do that. I know there's 11 people, but I can't see who is actually watching, other than the people that have commented, obviously. So, Vidal, have you got an opinion on that? Would you like coaching at all events or no events? I think having it at some and not at others isn't appropriate. Leave it how it is. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the easiest way to do it. And obviously coaches it's like they get paid to do it sometimes, and it's their job, and it's kind of their duty, and they've kind of built up a process, been trained how to do it, how to do corner coaching. So if it was taken away, then that's kind of all gone to waste. So, you know, and it does, I suppose, create a kind of a team atmosphere, like at team events, for example. All events, Vidal is saying, so that's fair enough, yeah. You've got it at like Junior British League, whatever, and Senior British League, where you've got kind of a team around you and they give advice. So in a team event, anybody can give advice to the player. In a singles tournament, it's only one person, one nominated person that can give advice. So unless there's any other comments, I've made my comments clear, my views clear on the two kind of proposals or suggestions by Table Tennis England to change tournaments. I haven't got any like outright objections if they go ahead and make these changes, but it's good to discuss these topics and get them out in the open. Obviously, Table Tennis England is trying their best to, you know, see what works, try new things, and I guess an experiment isn't any harm. It's one event, so I haven't got any problem with it. So yeah, so I'll wrap it up. So thanks for anyone that did tune in, and hopefully I'll be back next week with a regular show with some guests for episode 11. Thanks a lot. Bye.